In this episode of Geopolitics Review, I'll present an expose of a few slides and video clips demonstrating the vile darkness that Netanyahu and the Chabad-Lubavitch cult of Hasidic Orthodox strict sticklers cling bitterly to the code of dominating who they call the Goyim. They certainly demonstrate the yearning to totally annihilate Western values and the people with their replacement theory and other measures to just shit all over us as Gentiles. So let's watch.
Proof you've been lied to about Israel.
Okay, so the world still hasn't woken up to Zionism. This is Palestine, an open-air prison with millions of people in it. Yeah, Palestine. So now I've got to come on here and educate everybody about how this place was actually called Palestine for a really long time. Did you know that Israel was created in 1948? Because this is Palestine. What most people don't know is that Israel is not a country. It is an occupation of Palestine since 1948. We're talking about a military occupation that's been going on for 75 plus years. 75 plus years. I want you to imagine how you would act if your home's name was changed and it had been stolen, and your neighborhoods were stolen, and your kids were arrested, and they were held indefinitely, and bombs were dropped because everybody wants to think that you're a terrorist, even though you have no recourse for the situation you're in. Ask yourself why none of these old maps label the region Israel. Why? Because it's not Israel. And the Torah is not a land contract. I bet you didn't know that Palestine was gifted to the Zionists in 1917 by Lord Balfour, called the Balfour Declaration. Notice the name up in the corner, Lord Rothschild. That's right. The region of Palestine was gifted to Lord Rothschild in 1917. True story. If you think these people are terrorists that deserve this, you are sadly mistaken. These people live like this. This isn't just recently. They stay like this because Israel is always on the offensive. Then there's this POS, Benjamin Netanyahu, aka Bibi. Yeah, this guy's a complete warmonger, a remnant of the George Bush era of ultra right-wing fascism. That's right. This man is a right-wing fascist, a militaristic, blood-soaked monster. And before you go getting it twisted, the definition of a Semite is a member of any of the peoples who speak or spoke a Semitic language, including in particular Jews and Arabs. That's right. So every time Israel does something against Palestinians, it's anti-Semitic. That's right. Learn the definition. And let's add to that anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism are not the same thing. Okay? So what is Zionism? Good question. The difference between Zionism and Judaism is extreme. Judaism is a religion. They practice the Mosaic law, thou shalt not kill, and that is a good thing. Zionism, however, is not Judaism. It is a movement for the reestablishment and the development and protection of a Jewish nation that is now Israel. See the difference? Judaism is not Zionism. Anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. Plain and simple. They're not going to show these images on the news. Oh no, because the mainstream media is controlled by Zionism. So you're not going to see Palestinians carrying their children around on the nighttime news. You're just going to hear how Israel needed to do this in self-defense. Yeah. I am so burnt out on their nonsense. This is clearly Palestine. This is 1750. Where's the Israel? There was no Israel. Israel's an occupation. And yet another map, this one from 1767, Palestine. I'm exhausted, and the people of Palestine must really be exhausted. So, please, share the truth, spread the truth. This is the truth. Palestine has been under attack for 75 plus years by the occupation of Israel. It's been said. And just to give you an idea of how long I've been standing up for this issue, here's a video clip of me with my old name, Chris Phillips, without a beard, 10 years ago, on Fox News, on Sean Hannity, in front of the entire world. Here we go. Roll the tape.
Freedom of speech in America.
Anti-Semitism. I asked you a question. Do you have a problem with anti-Semitism?
Listen, I don't like hate. I don't like hate. Is that clear enough? I don't like hate.
Is anti-Semitism hate?
A lot of times, anti-Islam is hate.
I asked you if anti-Semitism is hateful.
You certainly lack credibility.
Is anti-Semitism hateful?
Yes, absolutely. But anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism.
Uh-huh. Judy?
Mm-hmm.
So there's been a lot of discourse lately about what is and isn't anti-Semitism in terms of critiquing Israel. I'm going to play a video I saw first thing this morning. I'm just going to let this play while I talk. When Hitler was rising to power, he wrote a book called Mein Kampf. It outlined the Jewish problem, which was this. He believed that Jews ran the world, controlled the media, and controlled all the world's currency. He told the world that Jews were to blame for Germany's financial ruin after World War I, and that getting rid of the Jews would save the world. This ideology is what led to the formation and the success of the Nazis, and this idea is what led to and defended the Holocaust. For those of us who live in the real world, I don't really have to defend the fact that this just isn't true. We know that America has never had a Jewish president or vice president. We know that the National Prayer Breakfast is held every year by Christians. We know that the American society is built around Christianity. But that's not what this is about. The problem with claiming that any critique of Israel is anti-Semitism is that it weakens the term and leads to this. When we as Jews allow Zionism to be conflated with Judaism in a whole, this is what happens. True Nazi shit. Taking a firm stance against the attacks on Gaza by Israel is not anti-Semitism. This video is the real anti-Semitism. When we as Jews allow ourselves to victimize ourselves and say that any critique of Israel is anti-Semitic, we allow videos like this and sentiments like this to be held by the majority of people. There is obviously a line in which critique of Israel becomes anti-Semitic when this kind of rhetoric enters. When it stops being that America is controlling Israel and it becomes Israel and AIPAC control America. It's a very fine line because critique of Israel is extremely valid, but letting anti-Semitism creep into that is becoming easier for a lot of people. A lot of anti-Zionist Jews like myself believe that the violence and the horrors being committed by Israel are contributing to this rhetoric. I believe that Netanyahu is being looked at as the head Jew, that he's become the face and the voice of global Jews. And if most people believe that and view him as such, it's going to be very easy for them to fall into this rhetoric that Jews run the world and are evil. Because Netanyahu is evil. But he and his right-wing gaggle don't get to destroy the world for the rest of the Jews. It's up to us to remind everybody that that is not who we are. That this political Zionist attack has nothing to do with Judaism. I'll never stop advocating for Palestinians. And I'll never stop advocating for Jews. Those beliefs are not mutually exclusive. Far-right Zionism makes the world unsafe for Jews.
Look, I've seen people posing as pro-Palestinian, posing as pro-Muslim, and they're like frenemies, you know? Like, if you listen to them, you could literally hear the exact same things coming from the mouth of a Ben Gvir or a Netanyahu or a Smotrich. You know, greater Israel is being achieved. The Arabs are weak. The Arabs are defeated. The Muslims are defeated. Israel's going to take over everything. On and on and on. I mean, do you realize how fanatically Zionist you actually sound right now? By the things that you're saying? You're saying it as if it's as if you're lamenting it so that we'll listen to it, but you're trying to implant that in our heads. It's absolutely bizarre that we tolerate people bigging up our enemies and deriding us and we treat it as if it's someone who is on our side. Look, Israel is being led by a complete lunatic who cares nothing whatsoever about the best interests of his own people. He's overstretching and he's overreaching beyond the capacity of the Israeli military and the Israeli economy. He's making decisions in a delusional state of personal desperation and political panic. He's clearly terrified. Israel is clearly terrified that Syria has been liberated from al-Assad, who they knew all along that they never had to fear. That's why they're lashing out like a cornered, wounded animal. Because yes, they are being surrounded. Israel is being surrounded by a newly cohesive, a newly organized, cooperative region that is increasingly acting with independent autonomy and in defiance of the United States. So they can see that the end of the road is fast approaching for Zionism. They can see it, and so can all of the cheerleaders of Israel who masquerade as critics, who masquerade as anti-imperialists, who masquerade as pro-Palestinian. So you see them, and this is their last-ditch effort to try to mislead you. This is their last-ditch effort. You see them trying to throw up their hands and tell you that the end is nigh, that all hope is lost, trying to make you think that it's your end and not theirs, and that your hope should be lost, when actually the reality is that their hope is lost about their own plans and their own agenda in our region. Alhamdulillah, if they are disheartened and they feel like they want to tap out, well, that's a good sign. They never wanted good for us. They never wanted good for us. And now they're hopeless about preventing good from coming to us. So they have nothing left to say. And their silence is golden.
How could it be done to you and your ancestors, and you turn around and you do it to someone else? And I ask Jews all over the world to consider what this man, Benjamin Netanyahu, and his right-wing government is doing to the Jewish people all over the world. To allow this to happen to children and civilians of all ages in Gaza, for whatever reason, is unconscionable and unthinkable. And I ask you Jews everywhere all over the world to spend some time alone and think, is this acceptable and sustainable? How could it be done to you and your ancestors, and you turn around and you do it to someone else?
I was really passionately pro-Israel, and there were a lot of parts of that worldview that I had never questioned or interrogated. And it took me a long time of hearing these stories, testimonies from Palestinian students that really did not comport with this rosy narrative that I had of Israel, where I was forced to, ask questions. I remember, a conversation I once had with a grad student who was actually an Israeli anti-Zionist Jew, and he said to me, I said, when you use words like apartheid and ethnic cleansing, they make me really uncomfortable. I feel like you're attacking Israel. And he then explained to me that the words ethnic cleansing and apartheid are actually terms that have, legal and historical meanings that accurately describe things that were happening on the ground. And, that totally disarmed me because, again, I was taught this deeply anti-intellectual posture to kind of dismiss these facts and these realities that are really happening on the
America proud again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. God bless you and good night. I love you.
No president in history has been a greater friend of the state of Israel than I have, in addition to negotiating the Abraham Accords. I like to say it that way because the real people, that's what they call Abraham. I would say Abraham, but it's so much nicer when you say Abraham.
The Kabbalah and the Zohar are the fundamental books the most occult, magic, and satanic groups base their philosophies and actions on. Lilith's Cave is a Jewish folklore and mythological book that has plenty of allegories about their beliefs and practices.
There's a book that I had just come across called Lilith's Cave, which is a book of Jewish mysticism and supernatural, and there's a lot in that book that relates to what I endured when I was a child.
One well-known magician, Alpheus Levi, wrote in his book Transcendental Magic, quote, "All truly dogmatic religions have issued from the Kabbalah and returned therein. Whatsoever is grand or scientific in the religious dreams of the illuminated, of Jacob Boehme, Swedenborg, St. Martin, and the rest, is borrowed from the Kabbalah. All Masonic associations owe to it their secrets and their symbols." Acts 7:43. "Yea, ye took up the tabernacle of Moloch and the star of your god Ramphan, figures which ye made to worship them." The religion generally known as Judaism is not the Old Testament or Mosaic law practiced by the ancient Israelites. By around 600 BC, Jews had added the oral law, which is primarily rabbinic commentary, written down throughout the centuries. The combination of Torah and rabbinic law is called the Talmud. The Talmud has two versions: the Jerusalem Talmud, followed primarily by Palestinian Jews, and the Babylonian Talmud, which is considered by many to be the most authoritative of the two Talmuds. Just as the Synagogue of Satan are not the biological descendants of Israelites, and are impostors pretending to be Israelites, their religion only pretends to follow the Old Testament. Let me be clear, I am talking about esoteric because they follow the teachings and commentary of rabbis, not the Word of God. In Yahushua's time, they were called the Pharisees. Our Messiah said that the religion of the Pharisees was doctrines of men, not the law of the Old Testament. Talking to the scribes and Pharisees, Jesus said, "Ye hypocrites, well did Isaiah prophesy of you, saying, This people draweth nigh unto me with their mouth, and honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. But in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews, and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan." Speaking to the Jews of his day, Isaiah says, "But draw near hither, ye sons of the sorceress, the seed of the adulterer and the whore. Against whom do you sport yourself? Against whom do you make ye a wide mouth, and draw out the tongue? Are ye not children of transgression, a seed of falsehood? Inflaming yourselves with idols under every green tree, slaying the children in the valleys under the clefts of the rocks." Isaiah references this black magic ritual and the fact that here the children are slain under the cleft of the rocks. This refers to the Talmudic ban against burying Gentile children. The playbook that every single occult organization splintered off of is the Kabbalah, which is Jewish mysticism. The Babylonian Talmud is to science what Kabbalah is to philosophy. The doctrines of this, and other secret societies are all rooted in this mysticism. Albert Pike, one of the most well-known leaders in the history of Freemasonry, said in his book Morals and Dogma that the source of the doctrine of Freemasonry and the Illuminati ultimately goes back to the Kabbalah, the Jewish book of occult knowledge. These groups are the ones carrying out ritual abuse and mind control.
Well, that was a refreshing look at what those Jew Zionists being most likely into and would be willing to murder us all to succeed. But anyway, folks, that's enough of that for me today, and I'll see you in the next one. By the way, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.